Sure. Thanks, Elaine. Hello and welcome to today's Winncom Technologies webinar. Today's topic, as Elaine said, will be an overview of Winncom's engineering and professional teams services. Uh, First of all, I hope that everyone is keeping healthy and taking caution as best they can. We've had a few Winncom webinars in the last few weeks, and we'll keep this trend going to share some of our favorite ideas and more introductions to what Winncom is and what we're about. So let's move along. As I said, and as Elaine said, my name is Dave Thackerton. I'm part of the Winncom Engineering and Professional Services team. We have a guest speaker today toward the end of the webinar is Jeff Ellis, who's also on our team, and we're going to have a nice discussion about some design concepts. Specifically, our engineering team is made up of at least 10 engineers, varying in expertise, all at your disposal, as a value add that Winncom offers. We also have a guest, we also have a global presence with our engineering team as we expand our reach, per se. Winncom sales has been pretty vast throughout the past couple of years, and we have some new engineers that we've hired and have been on our team for almost, if not over a year now, over in the EMEA region, as well as CALA, which we've previously had. Toward the end of the webinar, we'll be able to take Q&A if we have time. I just wanted to say that this might take a half hour or close to it, but I'd like to actually cover with a little bit of depth some of the topics that we have here to discuss. For today's agenda, we have several topics to cover. These are highlights of many of the things that we actually do. We have design services that we're going to highlight. We have consulting services that we're going to highlight, pre-configuration services, in-person classroom training, which a lot of you probably know and have seen us more publicly doing. And then we have some specialized services that I'd like to cover. Again, these are just highlights to show the broad range of what we do. Again, during our session, feel free to enter questions into the chat window, and Elaine will be able to triage and give us them at the end if we have time. If we don't have time, we'll definitely deal with them via email, so your questions will get answered. Really quickly, for those of you who are not familiar with Winncom, shame on you, but just kidding. Feel free to explore our website to see what we have. A wide range of products and services available, which to me is our value add. We are essentially an award-winning global company helping our customers towards success for over 20 years. Likewise, the Winncom Engineering and Professional Services team has been around for a very long time, working closely with our sales, operations, shipping, and product management teams. As I said, the engineering team is global. Each of our members comes from a diverse background. So within the networking and wireless world, and even electrical and other engineering aspects of your endeavors, we have guys on our team that can chime in and give a good assessment and design and any kind of engineering qualities that you are looking for. We most likely have it, or have the resources for it, as well as our manufacturers, which is an expansion of our engineering team in itself. If you have a specific question, just go to our sales team and they can introduce you to the right section of our engineering team. So let's get started by discussing our design services. Before that, I'd like to highlight, but we're not limited to, our licensed point-to-point, point-to-multipoint, propagation mapping, Wi-Fi design, and DAS design. First of all, point-to-point design, which seems initially to be one of the easiest projects to work on, but as you get into longer distances and licensed links, the complexity increases drastically. Here you can see the flow of inputs through to purchasing and installation. The modeling tools out there these days can do great things, giving you performance expectations, reliability, line of sight confirmation, even tilt angles, and other specifics for mounting and alignment in the field. So it's end to end as far as how these design tools, a lot of these design tools are built, depending on the manufacturer, of course, but also not limited to and preferably not specifically manufacturer tools. There are licensed tools out there that we use to keep a fair and manageable assessment of links. Just as important is the bill of materials for budgeting and purchasing. It seems simple, but in many cases, there are nuances that need to be considered. Seemingly minor entries into a performance tool can greatly affect the outcome. If those entries are not calculated and possibly skipped over, your bill of materials could be missing parts, and your day of installation could be frustrating. Additionally, the sustainability of the link over time may not be what you expected. We'll circle back around to some of these details with our conversation with Jeff a little bit later. Specifically in this slide, as you go through the process, different entries, different inputs could affect different things across the board. Selecting the wrong frequency for your link, limiting the antenna sizes because you want to stick with an existing antenna or you have limited space would affect the path characteristics and performance statistics. We've had customers who have a hard time interpreting what they see for terrain or not even using terrain. We have the decision between using spatial diversity or not, calculating interference, understanding performance. Even the eye chart of reading those performance charts is something that we can help walk you through. Synchronization is always a factor. It's something you can just plop in there, but understanding how it affects your link and how it may affect performance on certain manufacturer radios is a consideration that comes with experience. And of course, in the bill of materials, you want to make sure that you have all the parts needed one time on site to achieve what the modeling tool may have told you would be achievable. So we can get into those things a little bit later. Moving on, one of our value adds for services is using tools like ATOL. ATOL is a point-to-multipoint propagation tool. It's a great asset to getting started with a WISP type endeavor, not limited to WISP, but for this example, yes. From completely greenfield to adding a sector to an existing network, with just a few inputs from the customer, we can tell you coverage expectations, performance, receive sensitivity, mounting heights, and just basically show obstacles in your network. The benefits of these studies come from money saving in truck rolls to examine sites individually, to discovering new customers and markets for marketing, examination of hard to reach sites, such as finding a relay point. If there's a site that is presumably unreachable, by going on site, putting up a pole, powering up a radio, it may be you can look around and see any kind of relay points, or from this aerial and heat mapping view, you may be able to decide that from the comfort of an air-conditioned office. As well as just deciding a new sector for an existing network and calculating return on investment that you might anticipate for this network. So definitely savings, discovery, monitor, troubleshooting unreachable customers, and measuring ROI are the key factors that I'd like to say that our propagation tools bring. And a lot of people, will go to high-end tools or use low-end tools. We use ATOL, which is considered on the high end and more detailed. We'll get to it a little bit more later, but just little specifics like what kind of GIS data you use, what kind of accuracy, are all factors that come into play with using a professional design house and professional tool to do these kind of measurements. Wi-Fi design services. So I slapped in the statement that I've heard many times. Wi-Fi is easy. Yes, it is. Just grab a napkin, draw it out, and measure for square footage. No, please don't do that. With experience, Wi-Fi does become easier. You can go through a chain of hotels that are constructed all similarly and go across the board, and if you've done the first few, the rest will seem easy. But that's not necessarily the case, because different construction companies do different things. Whether you can't compare all hospitals, you can't compare all hotels, you can't compare all schools. I did a county-wide project with 32 elementary schools in Colorado, and every school was of a different age. Asbestos was a factor, construction type between 1800s to 2000s construction methods were all something to consider. So don't treat everything the same. Don't assume walls are walls. Look into densities. Look into the user movements, the user capacities, the user applications. Those are all things that get easily overlooked. I've done many projects with Wi-Fi design, indoor and outdoor, and it's better to use a professional with a professional tool. Again, it does get easier, but I would always run it through a tool, and preferably run it through us. One of the main things that I run into also that I keep forgetting to mention in documentation, which I need to add to a lot of our questionnaires. A lot of our design endeavors come with questionnaires, so they're easy. Our salespeople will send you the questionnaire, and you can input the information. They'll give us eyes on the location. And one of the big things is co-location. So Wi-Fi devices tend to be crammed into smaller spaces and have to deal with self-interference, as well as outside interference from nearby condos, if it's a multi-dwelling unit, or a microwave in a kitchen can still be a factor. Those kind of things that we need to know are all the inputs that we need to consider. But co-location is one of the biggest problems, because one of the new endeavors for Wi-Fi is to add more radios to a single unit. So within that unit, there has to be some timing and consideration for co-location, as well as putting a 4-radio unit, for instance, next to another 4-radio unit. So those are all the complexities of Wi-Fi. DAS, distributed antenna systems, has become hot on the radar of all wireless professions as of late. Whether DAS is your primary business, or you stumble upon or across a deal here and there, or if you'd like to add it to your to widen your business portfolio, the demand is growing rapidly. DAS design, however, is another story. You will most likely need assistance with an IB wave design. The pieces, parts, placement, and carrier-sensitive parts can get complicated. If you're in a full DAS company, our 3 certified DAS engineers can assist when design work is backlogged, for instance. We play in both worlds. If entering as an occasional part-time or growing company, having an outside design team such as ours will relieve the cost of the software, which is in the tens of thousands, and the output from IB Wave is so detailed that literally you could just be the installer and maintenance and possible consult commissioning service. But definitely it is very complicated and carrier sensitive, and that's where we can very well help you to earn and make some good money on DAS implementations. The model of actually dealing with the carriers can be handled by Winncom and the product manufacturers. So we have that great relationship with the manufacturers to come up with the solution for that location once and once only. No going back and fixing things. No going back and we did this wrong because we're not experienced in DAS. That's fine. That'll come with time. But use us to get it right the first time. Of course, our integrators that we sell to will be the people on the floor. They'll be doing site surveys. They'll be taking readings, and our DAS team can guide you through all of that, as well as offer our own services for site survey. And we'll get to site survey later, but site survey is something that we do and is encompassed in a lot of our design type methodologies. So let me move on to consulting services. Outside of our design house, we are advisors, if you will. Two of the topics I want to highlight would be end-to-end systems and material assistance. End-to-end systems, just the meaning that we can assist with that is that we can assist with design or part of design for your system. We can do the whole system. We can do just the power, just the wireless, just the networking, or the whole thing. That's where we go with the end-to-end statement. We have years of experience in combined and diverse backgrounds. These are typically the majority of our calls, including verifying if just a single part is the right one. So, majority of our quick, easy answers are, does this part work? Some of our long-term projects is, how do we build this out? How do we get it over to this location? How do we create multiple links, multiple networks, and so forth, and have them all work together? As I list these on the left, at the bottom, I usually say something like, we do more than that, and we also say challenge us. We tend to like the more interesting questions than the regular questions, but we'll take them all. For consulting services, bill of materials is one of the key ones also. It comes hand in hand with everything else we talked about. We can review your bill of materials. We can confirm that what it is right. We can build them from scratch. The assurance of success on site, as well as in ordering, as well as pricing and budgeting, is all a factor of the bill of materials. So this is what we deal with before it goes to our sales team and gets quoted, and we start making the business decisions and get moving with the project. The emphasis of the bill of materials and what I talked about before is being on site and having all parts in place. In past jobs, I've shipped myself a whole system for my team to install as far out as the desert of Mongolia, where there is no Home Depot, there is no Radio Shack. You had to have everything, every nut and bolt accounted for. Our federal team is doing a lot of that right now with shipping and doing projects overseas with full oversight on a lot of that and project management, etc. So we do, again, large to small, small to large. For pre-configuration services, I have 3 things that I want to highlight. We have upgrading and pre-populating, we have staging, and we have kitting. So Winncom has a large warehouse in the lab where we can grab whatever's on an order. We can take the input from a customer as far as what you want done to the device before we ship it. Preloading settings, uploading license keys, firmware upgrades to make sure all the products are at the same firmware, so there are no mismatches there. No fumbling in the field. And ideal for just reducing cost of man hours in the field, site time, that sort of thing. Let the guys do the physical install and commissioning and testing. A lot of times these things are rushed, especially testing at the end. certain deadlines, certain flights have to be made, certain I got to get back home because it's Friday. Those sort of considerations take a lot of that stress out by pre-configuring devices before they're shipped. Another part of pre-configuration is the actual staging. When we pre-configure, we open the boxes, we've powered the devices up, we've discovered any DOAs if there are any. Again, saving those man hours. It's a reassurance measure to make sure that the devices are working. Staging can also include making sure that a link works on a lab environment, as well as making sure that two non-common manufacturer components work together with the settings that are required. So we can do a lot of that before shipping also. There's a lot of different levels of staging that can be done beforehand. Kitting is just the allocation of devices, in my opinion. We can ship these devices to this location, this set of devices to another location. We can label. We can make sure that when you're in a staging environment in the field, you have to kind of grab your boxes, open the devices, power them up, put settings on them, assign them a location, a label, an IP setting, and then put them in a pile in that corner. Put them in another pile in that corner. Well, that also can be done beforehand. In-person classroom training has been a big part of our portfolio for quite some time now. We have two types that I'd like to kind of narrow it down to, but we're not limited to that. Definitely the phone call in will determine how we handle training. But we have Winncom, what I call Winncom hosted training, customized training. Winncom hosted, usually you'll see us at conventions, trade shows, or we'll have regional shows, endeavors around the country or around the world. We'll have set curriculums because some of our manufacturers do train the trainer where they have a curriculum already written and we bring our flavor to it as experienced engineers. Definitely experienced engineers is the key term here because there are some other endeavors out there, for lack of a better word, who may just read from slides. I hate to say it, but that sometimes happens. One of the key things here is also hands-on with equipment. We ship our equipment in Pelican cases so that as many students can have their hands on. We prefer one radio per customer, per attendee, and that's just the way it should be because there's nothing more than just getting killed by a bunch of slides and not having any time to log into a radio, create a link, configure some settings, and actually have done that before you actually have to fumble through it in the field. Some of our customized trainings, again, this is a call-in type thing where maybe you just want the attendees to just be your guys in your office. That can save a lot of travel expenses if one of our Winncom engineers travels to you rather than you sending 8 to 20 to 30 students to a site of ours. We can customize the actual class. We can give the curriculum that is stated per a certification or something. We can do multiple sessions in 1 week. I went to Jamaica a couple of years ago and I sat in one room and presented to different departments as they rotated in and specified my conversation to those different departments based on what they did. So we can customize as needed. It's not that difficult to do. And we have specialists who can handle how we can do that. And again, hands-on is always key. This is our Pelican case. Sometimes we're shipping 3 to 4 Pelican cases for a class. But we want to ensure that and we also have the latest devices. We don't just run with a training kit that has a set of devices. We usually grab from what's new or what's relevant to the customer. Specialized services. This is a general slide that I'm going to show because there are a lot of things that we're asked to do that we're like, yeah, we can do that. So just to cover some of the bases, we've done network audits and recommendations where you get reports. So most of the things that we do come out with nice reports. So it's not just us talking to you, it's us giving you a report that you can reference later, whether it's a design or a network audit. We've done network implementations. We definitely do site surveys. Site surveys are key. We do site surveys from point to point, point to multipoint, Wi-Fi, DAS, you name it. We've done it. Some of these pictures are pictures that I've taken. The bottom left is a rooftop in Cleveland where we're doing millimeter wave and other technologies. The one on the top is a DAS implementation that we went to oversee. On the top right is a DOT class that I taught just a year ago or more in I think Delaware. And then, you know, we get to do some fun travel overseas as well as anything else. And, you know, a network audit in Belize didn't really hurt my tourism desire. We do customize network monitoring. So we have WinCloud, which is a Winncom product, and we also implement PRTG services, on-site assistance. So my example would be, hey, look, we're new to this product. Can you come for a couple days and help us get started? And we've done that before. Channel planning is part of design that we can do. It's a little bit more intricate, but it's something that we can do as a service or as part of the design. CBRS is definitely hot right now, and we have CBRS services, as well as knowing a lot about CBRS and selling a lot of CBRS certified products. We have 2 CPI certified engineers on our team. I think it's CPI, which is a requirement for CBRS that you have someone qualified, certified for that. We can definitely advise a lot on CBRS. Basic troubleshooting, so that's a daily part of our life too. We have customers who come to us before they come to the manufacturer sometimes. And they're like, well, I can't get this setting right, or I don't know why my link is not working. And we can solve most of these problems or triage to the manufacturer if needed. So now that's double support in a way. And again, that falls under pre and post sale support. Sorry, I went the wrong way again. Here's a list that I tried to create a while ago of all of the things that Winncom can do. But again, it's not limited. I put -- more on the bottom of all of these because, I mean, basically just call in and see what you need and let us know, talk to the salesperson, and the salesperson will put you in touch with one of us appropriately based on what you're asking for. And we could probably do the majority of what you need and save you guys, again, money and time and sweat on learning some of these products that you're using. So we're toward the end. It's already almost the 30-minute mark, but I want to get Jeff on and have him discuss a few things with us about the intricacies of design in general. So Jeff gets really complex with some of his designs, as we all do. And as I mentioned before, with point-to-point, it can get pretty tricky. You go on long distances, you get into the licensed world, and then you get into the stacking, or for lack of a better word, like 4+0 type environments and that sort of thing. So Jeff, are you on? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello, everybody.
All right, so we're going to do this panel style. I'm just going to ask Jeff a couple of questions so he can kind of explain, you know, what he sees. So Jeff, what are some of the key differences between the different modeling tools out there?
And I think you're speaking in a point-to-point, since that's where my expertise lies, licensed point-to-point. So modeling tools are generally based on algorithms and the use of data. The data within these algorithms are treated differently between the tools. So more important is the data than the tool itself. Firstly, a good example is with clutter, or generally speaking, the obstacles above ground. The data is grouped into details. The details specify the types of the obstacles, such as evergreen forests, deciduous forests, wetlands, if it's an urban environment, or if there's sparse houses and so forth. This grouping also helps to determine the heights of these obstacles within the tool. Secondly, the algorithms are written to help identify these obstacles and will determine the transmission characteristics of the microwave signals. In broad terms, licensed planning tools and data provide more granularity to provide a better analysis.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So that's fair enough. Everyone's doing something slightly different toward the same goal, but yeah, not every modeling tool is created equally. So what are some of the major casualties of an incorrect design based on some of those differences that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so you might choose the wrong parts, like antennas, even radio or different frequency band. And you'll get an incorrect determination of the throughput and the reliability in your analysis.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. And it seems like it's a combination of the modeling tools as well as the user entries. So in 11 gig licensed point-to-point, for instance, I've seen that I can easily do a design, but one of the main settings I need to decide is whether to use, for instance, 11 gig wide versus 11 gig narrow, where in one modeling tool, I know that 11 gig narrow is the default setting. So I would assume customers who use that same tool would just go with the default. How do I make that decision, and is it easy to look up?
So it's initially, I'd probably start with the wide radio using the highest bandwidth. To get there, though, you'd need to use multiple Ethernet runs up the tower. If this is then a limiting factor, Winncom does have a hybrid cable, so that these multiple runs are actually only in one cable and will be split out between the different interfaces at the radio. If there's still a limiting factor that you need electrical, then you could start looking at aspects of using the narrow radio. Keep in mind that narrow radios are not normally stocked, though, and there could be a lead time of 3 to 4 months for them.
Okay, thanks. That's good info. So some things that are privy to shipping and that sort of thing might not always be included in a forum or some other effort to understand these how to make these links happen. I know that you kind of often assist customers with very complex solutions. So in keeping with the 11 gig license point-to-point topic, I know there are ways to tweak a link in 11 gig to get to 2 gigabits capacity on a long-range licensed link using 4+0, slightly as pictured in my slide here. Can you give some detail on what's needed?
All right, so we know we're looking for 2 gigs of throughput, right? Now we need to know what reliability is needed. If we're looking at 4 nines or better, is there a limiting factor of the antenna size on this particular project? At Winncom, we've come up with a sales questionnaire that addresses the requirements for the link to help us determine the engineering aspects. Small things are often overlooked.
Okay, good. So the entry point is sales. They'll help you through a questionnaire. We'll take the questionnaire as engineers and try to run it as best we can and give feedback. So just to cap off, in all, it seems as though there are intricacies that go beyond the tools being used. What has industry experience taught you over the years, Jeff?
So being part of a dedicated design house, we can ensure that you'll have professional design with predictions each time. And we'll also ensure that purchasing, that when the rubber meets the road, the links will work as predicted. All the necessary parts will be on site for the installation, and the sustainability of the link is also taken into account as well. And everything will be there on day one, and your installation will perform as predicted.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jeff. I think we kind of concluded that the performance and the results are key elements that you'll get by using someone like Winncom Engineering for these kind of endeavors. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for sticking through beyond the half-hour mark. I kind of knew I'd run over a little bit. I don't know if we'll have time for questions necessarily. I think what I'd like to do, just to let you guys go, is we'll answer your questions via email. And I just want to make an announcement for our next webinar, which will be hosted by Camille, the head of Winncom Engineering, on June 25th, 2020 at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And he'll be talking about monitoring and managing your network. So yeah, finally, I'd just like to say thank you all for attending. Sorry we didn't get to Q&A, but again, just contact us via your salesperson, or if you already entered questions in the chat, we'll respond to you today or tomorrow. And I just wanted to open the conversation and say, look, just bring us your questions, bring us your projects. We can review designs that you've already done. And the first entry point here is via your sales team at Winncom. So thank you for your time.